Good morning. Good morning, and thank you, Eva, for that introduction. And I suppose thanks to Sport and Citizenship and to Evalio for inviting me to present to you here this morning. In terms of the Active Cities project, it's a Sport Ireland national initiative, and it's focused on getting those who are least active. The project is funded through the Dormant Accounts Fund, so it's specifically targeting those who are educationally, economically, or socially disadvantaged, or those who have a disability. The project is being run across the 5 largest cities in Ireland, and it's being facilitated and coordinated by 8 local sports partnerships. So just, I suppose, to give a bit of context as to how things are structured here in Ireland, Sport Ireland is the statutory authority responsible for the development of sport, and that's from participation sport right through to high performance. Sport Ireland fund and coordinate a network of local sports partnerships whose primary focus is to promote and increase sport and physical activity within local communities. In Ireland, there are 26 counties, and each county has its own local sports partnership. That's with the exception of Dublin, as there are 4 local LSPs in Dublin, given its size and population. So there is a network of 29 LSPs nationwide. For the Active Cities project, 8 of these LSPs operate as a mini network to deliver on the project. In terms of where the project originated from, in 2018, we saw the development of the Global Action Plan for Physical Activity, the GAPA framework. And we also saw the introduction of the Global Active City label as an ISO standard. Alongside this, at a national level, we've seen the introduction of national plans and policies, and we've got ongoing national research on physical activity levels through the Irish Sports Monitor. And I suppose it's these developments at both an international and national level that shape and guide the work of Sport Ireland. And these are what led to identifying the need for an Active Cities project. We've got really high rates. We've had really high rates of physical inactivity in both the adult and child population. And alongside this, we've over a third of the Irish population live across the 5 cities. We know from broader research that high rates of physical inactivity can negatively impact the health, the economy, the environment, and the community of our cities. And so the Active Cities project was to be established here. So in 2020, Sport Ireland invited applications from the 8 sports partnerships, and they provided them with current and capital funding, and the project commenced in 2021. So as part of how the project was structured, the 8 LSPs agreed to pool funds together to recruit and host the role of the National Active Cities Officer. So my role is based within the network itself, as opposed to being based within Sport Ireland. And so I'm employed through Limerick Sports Partnership. Each local sports partnership recruited and appointed a local Active Cities officer or lead, and collectively we developed and launched the Active Cities brand. You can see on the top left of your screen, that's the National Active Cities logo, and it contains the colours associated with each of the 5 cities. This allowed us then to be able to create local versions of the logo, ensuring that there was both collective and individual identity as part of the project. Just to note, the 4 local sports partnerships in Dublin operate under the collective brand of Active Cities Dublin. So Sport Ireland, the 8 sports partnerships and the external evaluation agency came together and worked on developing a logic model for the project. And so this then provided a clear vision and mission. And it also, the project itself is based on the 4 pillars of the GAPA framework. So Active Cities in Ireland is very much a national initiative that's delivered locally through us as a team of Active Cities staff, taking both a collective and local approach. So as a collective, we have clear objectives under each of our 4 pillars. Within Active Systems, we are focused on collaboration and partnership and making best use of data. Under Active Environments, we seek to improve spaces and places for more physical activity opportunities. In Active Societies, we look to promote and market more effectively. while under the active people pillar, we seek to improve provision in terms of programmes, events and opportunities. So although these are collective objectives, each area can take a local approach to achieving these. So each area develops their own action plan on an annual basis. In terms of collaboration and partnership, that's structured in a way to suit the needs of a city. Also in terms of capital projects and initiatives and programmes, these are based on local need. So just to give some, I suppose, brief examples of these points, if we take, say, collaboration and partnership, we can see on the screen there are 4 different examples from 4 of the 8 areas. 3 of the areas, so South Dublin, Limerick and Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown, established a standalone active city steering committee. And you can see that there's both similarity and variation between the organisations that sit on each of those committees. If we take the top left of the screen, in South Dublin, the decision was taken there that there would be 6 internal departments within the local authority initially operating as an internal active city steering committee. And this was because the decision was taken that the focus was on needing to strengthen these relationships as opposed to, I suppose, bringing in external organisations from the outset. The focus was very much on strengthening and broadening these existing relationships first. That's in contrast to the bottom left of your screen, which was the approach taken in Cork, where there were already 24 existing groups and committees. And so rather than set up a standalone active city steering committee, the active cities lead in Cork took the approach of taking the active cities agenda to these existing committees through utilising the whole of the sports partnership team in Cork. And there's an example on the screen of 3 of those types of committees that exist and the different types of stakeholders that sit within them. I suppose key here is a one-size-fits-all approach isn't something that does or could work in relation to collaboration and partnership. And it's been very much a local approach taken in each area as to how collaboration and partnership is progressed. In terms of our capital projects under our active environments pillar, again, there's been, I suppose, variation and similarity between the cities in terms of the type of infrastructure that's been funded. This has very much been, I suppose, focused on what the need is in the local area through the collaboration and partnership with the various stakeholders to identify the most relevant and appropriate infrastructure to be funded through our capital funding. Likewise, with regards to identifying initiatives, whether that be programmes, whether that be schemes, events, I suppose, again, excuse me, there's been variation and there's been similarity with, excuse me, with between the areas, but I suppose the focus has very much been about meeting the local need. So again, it's about having an overall collective objectives within each of the pillars, but then it's driven locally by each of the active cities officers or leads and to identify what is most appropriate to be implemented in their areas. So that's in terms of the local approach. In taking a collective approach, we have monthly online meetings where we share learnings, exchange ideas and have guest speakers. And these guest speakers are often from national organisations looking to work with us either on a collective basis or with a number of the local areas, depending on what the project is. We've delivered collective promotional campaigns where we've pooled resources, we've carried out market research, and we've also delivered promotional campaigns alongside other national already existing campaigns like Bike Week, like European Week of Sport, National Walking Week. We seek and share best practice through both national and international engagement. And we have biannual in-person meetings where we not only review and plan, but where we also look to, I suppose, put a bit of a spotlight on successes at both a local and collective level. And then we have ongoing collective evaluation through the external evaluation agency. So just to give you some detail, I suppose, on one example of how we have worked as a collective. We identified one of the barriers to participation for some people is a lack of access to equipment. We explored potential solutions as to how we could provide equipment in open spaces and places, and that led us to engaging with BoxUp. BoxUp is an equipment storage unit accessed for free through an app. So how does it work? You simply download a free app to your phone using photo ID, create your account, and then through Bluetooth on your phone acts as a key to access any of the lockers. You select the activity you want to do, and you have access to that equipment for up to 3 hours for free. So it requires no deposit, no bank details, no credit card. And then when you're finished playing with the equipment, you simply pop it back in the locker, take a picture and upload it to the app. And then we know the equipment has been returned. So why did we choose BoxUp? I suppose one of the key aspects to BoxUp is the fact that it's completely free to use. So for us, our funding was targeting those in disadvantaged communities. So it was really important that anything we were going to introduce wasn't going to involve bank details or credit cards or deposits, because that could have potentially been another barrier. It's also completely accessible. So in terms of its height, in terms of being able to access it for somebody with a disability. So again, this was important given what our funding had been provided to us for in terms of who our target groups are. The units themselves are also solar powered. As we were looking to build relationships and strengthen relationships with local authority departments, it's been really important that we don't, I suppose, conflict or compete with other agendas. So in terms of the local climate action agenda, the sustainability agenda, the environmental agenda, we wanted to ensure that anything we were going to introduce was going to complement, again, as opposed to conflict. So the fact that we're solar powered was supporting us with that. And I suppose BoxUp provides an online dashboard, which provides us with an insight on the levels of engagement of the equipment. And this was going to give us, I suppose, clear insight. Working as a collective, we were able to negotiate a discount as we ordered in bulk. We also created our own design, as you can see through the images, to ensure that there was a common design across all units. This allowed for the one design cost to be split across the group. We were able to collectively promote this new initiative while each area had their own, I suppose, local launch to strengthen relationships with local stakeholders. To date, we have installed 20 BoxUp stations across the 5 cities. We've had another 8 delivered, which are due to be installed and activated in the coming weeks. We know from the data that the units are having a positive impact in terms of getting people active in local communities. As we've seen over, as you can see on the screen, 6,000 individuals use the equipment, with over 21,000 uses of equipment and over 12,000 hours of activity to date. But the introduction of BoxUp has not just impacted these local communities. There has been a much wider impact to active cities introducing this concept to Ireland. There has been a greater awareness, both nationally and locally, on the need to provide equipment to increase access and opportunity for all. A variety of organisations have been in touch with the Active City staff team to get a greater understanding of BoxUp, how it works, and the potential impact it could have in their areas. We introduced through the project the concept of BoxUp in 2023 to Ireland, and in 2024 we saw national funding was made available to all 29 local sports partnerships for equipment storage lockers. There's also greater awareness on the value of usage data to evidence impact. We know that numbers talk, numbers tell a story, and they provide a picture. And I suppose it's been really useful in terms of engaging with the local authority departments in being able to, I suppose, give that evidence and give that support as to why these units are valuable in communities, but also be able to demonstrate the levels of engagement within them. Going forward, we are committed to working towards Global Active City certification in all 5 cities, but doing this at the pace that suits each of the cities, as opposed to doing it all at once as a collective. again, going back to that local approach. We have a focus on increasing overall physical activity levels, and we are working towards taking a whole systems-based approach by encouraging the biggest player in the system, which is the local authority in each city, to really drive this agenda forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mary, and congrats for this very nice presentation and speech. I think you had a lot of reaction on the chat regarding your presentation. I think it also underlined how important it is to have first to work within a network and to have this kind of like basically easy solution, but very innovative one, such as the box up one. Just a few questions from the chat. There was one from Claire Boursier about children getting physically active, and what do you implement at the moment at Sport Island and within the Active Cities program for them, including children with a disability? Maybe if you want to answer that.
Yes, so within each of the local sports partnerships, so as I say, I'm not based within Sport Ireland, I'm based within Limerick Sports Partnership, but I work across the 8. Within each of the 8 sports partnerships, there is as a SIDO, a Sports Inclusion Disability Officer, and our Active Cities staff would work closely with the Sports Inclusion Disability Officers who have a remit to target both adults and children with disabilities in terms of getting them more active. So through our Active People pillar and our Active Societies pillar, the Active Cities officers would work closely to identify where there are gaps and where there's gaps in current provision around children and adults with disabilities, and where there's an opportunity for Active Cities funding to support the SIDO's funding, the SIDO's funding to be able to deliver more. And also, I suppose, it's looking at how we promote. So there is that synergy between the two. With regards to the Active Cities officers, it's working closely with the SIDOs and with the other relevant stakeholders. So with disability organisations and representative groups within the communities from a collaboration and partnership point of view.
Thank you very much, Mary, for this question. There was another one, I think, on the box up, but you already answered a bit about was it widely used? I think, yeah, we had the answer. It was quite widely used. And another question that is often coming back, I remember that we had it on the precedent event of the Pacte Plus project, if it had been preserved or if it had been the victim of vandalism. And I think I can tell you from my colleague from Limerick that it was not that much a difficulty, the question of the vandalism. But Mary, if you want to further answer to this question.
Yeah, I think there are challenges to anything that you bring in. Where we have found that it's working very well is where there has been a lot of consultation with the local groups prior to it being installed, and that that it is being monitored. And I suppose we're working with those communities. What we would say is, if somebody takes a basketball, but we know that when the basketball is replaced and there's a lot of people getting usage out of it, that benefit outweighs the fact that we may have some small pieces of vandalism around it. But I think across the board, across the 8 sports partnerships, they would all agree that any issues that we've had have been overcome, and the benefit that we've gained through both the data that it provides us with, but also knowing and seeing within those communities the level of physical activity has increased in those parks and in those communities far outweighs any issues that have arisen to date.
Thank you very much, Mary. I think it was very interesting and a lot of good ideas coming from Ireland and the Active Cities network. So thank you very much for that.